In today's video, we're taking a look at the top apps to use for video conferencing because, well, pandemic? Morning everybody, afternoon, evening, whatever you're doing, thank you so much for watching. We've had something silly like 150 new subscribers to the channel within the last something like 20 days or something. So firstly, a quick hello and a quick thank you to all of you who are new and watching. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Pete and I used to own and run an IT support business on the south coast of the UK. We grew from nothing to 16 staff, over 1 million in revenue, and as luck would have it, we sold the business on the 5th of March.
Luck.
Today we're looking at the top video calling and conferencing platforms: Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, Google Duo, Zoom, Cisco Webex, and a good old favourite, FaceTime. And for each of them we'll be focusing on a few key areas, a few key stats, being firstly the headline stats, number of users, its intended use, any other useful features, privacy, ease of use, price, reliability, any limitations such as the number of attendees, and just a personal opinion of why you might prefer this platform over all of the other platforms. And one thing I'm not going to focus on too much today is the audio and video quality because, well, it's 2020. Audio and video quality is pretty much the same across the board, and it's dependent on so many things: how good your broadband connection is, your wireless connection, whether you're on 3G or 4G. There are just so many variables, and by now every platform will act the same. So firstly, Microsoft Teams. Headline stats: 44 million active users as of March 2020. Intended primarily for business to business use. Privacy is a real strength of Teams. It is embedded into the whole 365 ecosystem, and as long as you are taking steps to protect yourself with things like 2FA, you're generally good to go. Teams also requires you to invite people in rather than the open meetings to the general public, so it doesn't have issues that other platforms might have. Data is encrypted in transit and at rest, although there looks to be a little actual detail on what this looks like. Ease of use, I would say it's okay. I've been using Teams personally for a while through the business and it's all pretty straightforward to me, but because it's not just a video conferencing system, for me to comment on the pure video calling features, I would say that some things take quite a few clicks and menus to get to. There's also a fair bit of setup required to get into Teams to begin with. Typically by your IT team, you need to license the users, create the users, and so forth. I'd probably summarise as not that easy to get into, but once you're on a call, it's about on par with any other video calling app. Pricing wise, it's basically free. I mean, you can pay for it to open up features like using Teams as your actual phone system, the ability to schedule, record meetings and so forth, but as a plain video calling system, it's free. Reliability is a mixed bag when it comes to Teams. With this whole pandemic thing, there have been multiple reports of outages, likely due to the strain it's under with so many millions and millions of new users in a matter of a few short weeks. The last report of 44 million users is certainly a lot, but compared to Zoom's 200 million users, it's a concern that they're not able to handle the traffic. And if we skip to before the pandemic, Teams was pretty solid, but there were still the odd issues here and there that would mean that you might not be able to sign in from time to time or get into your meetings or something along those lines. So it's really not the strongest, but it's okay. Personal opinion, this would be my favourite pick for business use for those of you who are already on Office 365. It's more than just a video calling system, it is a whole collaboration platform. Instant messaging means you can ping messages to colleagues to ask a quick question without interrupting them with a phone call. You can see if they're online or if they're away from their desk. It can become a full-on phone system for your whole business, although value-wise I don't think the phone system is quite there yet. And when it comes to meetings, it integrates beautifully with the likes of Outlook, where you just have the Teams meeting button when you set up an Outlook calendar invite. And you can also record meetings, which can then be later viewed by your team, people who missed the meeting, for example. It's a neat feature. Next, Google Hangouts Meet, or Google Meet. Google Hangouts Meet is the new name for Google Hangouts, I believe. Although I believe Google Hangouts is still a thing for non-G Suite users. I don't really know. I'll be honest here, the whole Google naming convention continues to confuse me as they seem to just chop and change things so often. Headline stats here, well, there are no headline user numbers, but it's reported that Google is adding 2 million users per day. So it's difficult to compare this to the other platforms in terms of actual user base. Privacy, from my research, Google states their data is encrypted in transit, but a few other sources suggest only messages are encrypted, whereas video calls do not have the full end-to-end encryption. I've never personally used Google Hangouts Meet or Google Hangouts before, so I'm going to give a friend of mine a quick call using Google Hangouts Meet to see what it's all about. Hello, hello. Is it Google Meet or Google Hangouts Meet?
Essentially, they've rebranded it. So you've got Hangouts Meet, which is now Google Meet, and you have Hangouts Chat, which is Google Chat. So Google Meet is the video calling element of it, and Google Chat is the group chat room messaging, Teams, basically, like Microsoft Teams.
So does it need installing? How many attendees can you have? That kind of stuff?
This is one thing that I love about Google Meet. It runs inside the web browser, as we're doing now. The vast majority of other other video calling software needs you to install something. It can hold up to 250 participants in one call. I have no idea how you'd moderate that, 250 people, but it can do up to 250 people. You can internally stream as well. So if you're an enterprise, you can internally stream up to 100,000 people, which is interesting because Google's got 98,000 employees, so they're covering themselves there. It's part of G Suite, so if you buy G Suite, you can get it. You can get it on the G Suite Basic, Business or Enterprise packages. And on the Business version, is we recommend all our clients go on to, it's £9.20 per user per month. And that includes the whole of G Suite along with Google Meet. Up till September this year, they're also giving you all the enterprise Google Meet features into Business and Basic. So say, for example, they weren't doing that, you would be limited to 150 participants on a call, which, is still more than enough. Yeah. You wouldn't get the recording functionality either. The recording function is part of Enterprise at the moment. So you've got Google Meet that's part of G Suite, but they've also, as of last week, essentially announced that Google Meet is now a standalone product. So you can get Google Meet just on its own, and they're giving it away free for the first 6 months. So any business who's urgently needing a video calling conference during this outbreak, coronavirus outbreak, you can get Google Meet for free on its own for 6 months. You don't need to have the rest of the whole of G Suite package. You can just have Google Meet on its own. You can't buy that directly from Google. You have to go through a partner, and we have to fill in some forms and send it off to Google, and then you get access to it. But
I couldn't find anything specific to Google Hangouts in terms of like outages.
I don't remember Google Meet having an outage. Recent in the coronavirus, there's been about 2 outages that lasted about an hour or so. But that was Google Drive mainly and Gmail. I don't think Google Meet's gone down at all. Look, there's 2 reasons why I prefer it. If you've got G Suite already, then I think it's nuts to go and pay for a different system or use a different system because it's included in your license. It's built in there. You may have some valid reasons at the moment that you need to do a webinar or something like that, and you want to use something else, and that's fine. But if you're not doing stuff like that, why are you using a free version of a different bit of software when it's already included there? And I think the killer for me is it works in the browser, so it's just got that extra layer of security and simplicity. It's got some real-time captioning. This is fantastic. I don't know if you can turn it on at the moment, but if you can, it'll be under that overflow menu. It's using AI for real-time captioning in the video call. Only you can see it, so no one else knows you've turned it on, but it's brilliant for people that are hard of hearing. It's just superb subtitling that just appears on the screen, and it works superb. They've just introduced noise reduction, and this is mainly for people working at home. So it's using AI. So if someone slams the door, you shouldn't be able to hear it. If a dog barks in the background, it shouldn't come through. Likewise, if you have noisy kids, it's meant to be able to muffle that or minimize it. And then the final thing, it's low light detection. So using AI, if I'm badly lit, the AI will try and lighten me up for you so you can see me better.
So if I do this, it should do something. Thanks very much for your help.
Give me a shout if you need any more info.
Now, it's not really an immediate concern of mine, but my only comment here really is that Google has a habit of killing off their own product lines in favour of new products, as James went to there. Once again, with Google, it seems to be a case of too many cooks in one kitchen and no single focus on a core product line. it shouldn't have to take a Google expert like James to explain it to us all. On the face of it, it looks like a really, really good option with free premium features, 250 participants. Unfortunately that it's not live streaming externally for up to 100,000 people, because then it would be able to replace what people are trying to use Zoom for to run large-scale public events. And speaking of Google Duo, Duo is Google's version of FaceTime, as I understand it. You install the app on your Android or your iPhone, and then you can make video calls much like you do on FaceTime. It was launched in 2016, and at the end of 2016, Google Duo replaced the Google's Hangouts app that was pre-installed on all Android devices. So this does indeed seem like the FaceTime competitor. Privacy-wise, end-to-end encryption is in use for all calls, including group calls. Ease of use. Well, Google Duo, because it's pre-installed on any Android phone since 2016, much like Apple's FaceTime, if you're calling people with other Android devices, then this is by far the easiest way to do so, and it just makes it that much simpler to use. Pricing, once again like FaceTime, completely free. Reliability, I couldn't find a single report of any outages with Google Duo, so it's either extremely good and never goes down, or just maybe nobody's using it, so nobody notices the outages. Limitation-wise, in March 2020, Google updated Duo to have a limit of 12 participants, up from its 8 previously. And, well, personally, I just think that if you're an Android user who are calling other Android users, this is easily the go-to app. For any cross-platform use, this may still actually be a good option, but you will have to ensure that everybody has the Google Duo app installed on their computer or iPhone for it to work. On to Cisco Webex. Headline stats, well, Cisco registered a record 324 million users in March, as its primary focus is on the business and the enterprise space. Privacy-wise, Cisco is right up there in terms of privacy and security, as pre-pandemic, security-conscious firms such as the healthcare, the IT, financial services firms would have all been using it. It has end-to-end encryption, although it's worth noting that Cisco seemed to be on a bit of a run in terms of general security holes being discovered and subsequently being patched. Ease of use, well, officially it doesn't need installing, but it's much like Zoom, where it really encourages you to use the app and install the app for you to get all of the features. You can use it within a browser, but it will take you multiple clicks to actually get to the browser version of a meeting. Pricing wise, well, it is free, but you can pay to unlock extra features such as recording, removing the 40-minute time limit that's on there, and more corporate integrations and user management and so forth. Reliability wise, doing a quick Google News search shows multiple outages recently, so it seems like it's creaking at the seams, much like the other platforms reviewed here. Limitation wise, there is 100 participants for free with a 40-minute time limit, so very similar to Zoom. And my personal opinion, why would you use this over the other platforms? Well, I would say this is traditionally the system that the big blue chip companies use, those who are already invested in the Cisco ecosystem, perhaps that are already using a Cisco phone system already. The likes of, say, IBM, Cisco themselves, governments and healthcare. It's very unusual to find a small business using Cisco Webex as their main, perhaps paid for, video conferencing system nowadays. Next up, Zoom.
How long it's been versus like some other professions, say a few years or whatever. I think it really depends on just like the ethical standards of the profession. And in reality, I've heard that social work kind of has very high standards and like good standards in terms of things, and that oftentimes people of other professions don't have. Yeah.
Hold on.
What happened?
I saw nothing.
Zoom is by far one of the most well-known video conferencing systems out there right now, particularly because of the pandemic. And in fact, Zoom's daily active users has jumped from just 10 million to over 200 million throughout this pandemic. And along with that, of course, has come a lot of criticism over privacy, and particularly one, namely Zoom bombing. In March 2020, those rushing to Zoom discovered that if you shared a meeting link online and publicly, then others could join in and take part in a Zoom meeting that they haven't formally been invited to because, well, you just shared the link to your meeting with the world.
Zoom recommends create a password for each Zoom meeting. You could also establish a waiting room for your group. This way you can welcome each person individually and keep track of who's coming in. And for added safety, lock down the meeting once everyone's inside. This way no one new can come in once the meeting has begun.
But to be honest, the majority, if not all of those issues, have been caused by people misusing the system itself by sharing those meeting links publicly. Just like you wouldn't give the world your mobile phone number, you don't give the world your meeting ID and password. Something that most people don't realise is that you can live stream your Zoom meetings through the likes of Facebook and YouTube directly from Zoom. Now, you do need a paid-for plan to do this, but this will allow the general public to watch your live presentation without accessing the meeting itself and opening yourself up to the possibilities of Zoom bombing. That's quite a fun word to say. Zoom bomb. Saying that, there are still some other privacy concerns here which Zoom have promised to address. Things like sending data to Facebook, even though it's not declared in its T&Cs for one. But the phenomenon known as Zoom bombing has caused businesses, education establishments around the world to ban its use out of its fear of being hacked. Pricing wise, well, it's free to host meetings with up to 100 participants, but there is a 40-minute limit for any group meetings. That said, if you upgrade to a paid-for plan, it starts from $11.99 per month. Then you remove the meeting limit and you can access the streaming features, but you're still capped to 100 participants, which you can pay to add more, but it can get quite pricey quite quickly. Reliability-wise, doing a quick search on the Google News, it shows me an outage on the 3rd of April, the 23rd of March, and because of the coronavirus, I'm actually getting into page 20 or 30 of Google News for Zoom outages. And even then, I couldn't really find any reports of any outages prior to said event. So I would say that pandemic aside, Zoom could be quite stable. But at the moment, for certainly, they are struggling with the user numbers and the likes of Microsoft Teams, of course, they're having issues just keeping the service running. Last but no means least, FaceTime. Headline stats are, well, I have no headline stats, but the vast majority of the world will have an iPhone or an iPad device within grasp. The built-in FaceTime is a very, very popular way of video calling your friends and your family. I know because I've been using it every single day since the lockdown. You can host up to 32 people, which is a neat feature, although I'd suggest doing these calls from a larger screen if you're talking to a lot of people. 32 people is a lot of people to try and manage. Privacy-wise, as with most things Apple, privacy is at the core of everything they do with end-to-end encryption on FaceTime. Ease of use, and this is where Apple will once again win for its ease of use and simplicity, which is a little unfair to the other services because FaceTime is installed and available on all Apple devices by default, much like Google Duo, forgetting the names. But because of this, there's no talking through your nan on how to install it or how to use it. You simply call your nan and she can accept the call like any other phone call, whilst hopefully avoiding staring at her ear for the conversation while she thinks it's just a regular phone call. Pricing wise, free as always, so nothing to worry about there. Well, if you exclude the price of buying an Apple device. Reliability, once again from searching online, I couldn't find a single mention of a FaceTime outage. Go Apple! Limitations, well of course you must own and use this from an Apple device. You cannot install FaceTime on anything that's not an Apple device, an iPhone, an iPad, a MacBook Pro. I guess the other limitation here would be that this is a pure video calling program. You can't share your screen, you can't chat or attach files or anything like that from within the actual FaceTime app itself, which other things like Teams and Zoom and Google Meet do allow. Personal opinion, this would be my go-to for every video call for personal use for your friends and for your family, but probably not my go-to for business. Typically in business calls, you may want to use the additional features such as the chat and the screen sharing and so forth, but Apple would rank very highly for me for personal calls, providing, of course, you are calling people that have an iPhone or an iPad or an Apple device. And that just about wraps it up. And so, in summary, if you're an Apple user, then use FaceTime. If you're an Android user, then use Google Duo. A big blue chip company, probably use Cisco Webex. Office 365 company, then use Microsoft Teams. A G Suite company already, then use Google Meet, or whatever they're calling it today. And if you really get through that list and you still have nothing left to use, then I guess you should probably use Zoom.
It's
It doesn't work properly.
That's amazing.
Thanks a lot. See you next time. Bye-bye.
It's
Why
inverted.
does it not work?
it's because you're so white.
It's actually picking up my faces.
I think I've
Looks like some sort of demonic nebula. Can you? Is it because you're too close? No, it can't be. Wait.
I think it's because I'm all flushed and it's picking up my face more than any other colour. But it's quite trippy.